Thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs. For all of you who love doing paper dolls, today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I'm going to use this printed kit from an Etsy shop called Lilfuntreasures. And I'll have the link in the description box below where you can go and check out that Etsy shop and see what they have, and also a coupon for a discount if you want to purchase one of these paper doll kits. She has a couple of really cute fun ones. So her kits, you print them and color them yourself, then you assemble them and decorate them. So I thought I would show my process and show what it turns out like. And I want to add her to an art journal page. So when you're getting an Etsy digital, I have some digitals in my Etsy shop as well, and you do want to print out onto cardstock. If you print out on regular printer paper, it's going to be thin and flimsy. You're going to have to Mod Podge it or matte gel medium it down to a piece of cardstock or cardboard anyway, so you might as well just put cardstock in your printer and print it out, and then you're going to have, it'll be strong enough and firm enough to assemble the pieces. I like to use this Spectrum Noir. It is an ultra smooth white cardstock, and it is 100-pound cover weight. So you definitely want to use for a paper doll, because you're going to be putting brads in it and having movable features to it, movable arms, movable legs. You definitely want 100 pounds or better. 140 is even better. But I love this one because it's nice and smooth. It says ultra smooth, and it is. I like working with it and coloring it. And so since this is a kit that is not pre-colored and you have to color it yourself, I like the ultra smooth cardstock. So you could cut them out and color them afterwards, but I find it better to keep the sheet all intact, color it on here, and then cut everything out and assemble it. So that's what I'm going to do. And if you purchase this kit from Lilfuntreasures, she does give a really nice PDF file that has step-by-step instructions on what to do to create your paper doll. So let's get started and have some fun and see what I can do with this fun, cute autumn fairy. She's an autumn fairy, so I'm going to do an autumn themed page, and I think she's just adorable. So let's see what we can create with her. So what to use to color it with? You can use any supplies that you have on hand. I'm going to use some Tombow dual brush markers, the Archival brush markers, and the Spectrum Noir set that is for skin tones, the fair skin tones. So I'm going to use those for coloring to do the initial layers, and then I'm going to do colored pencil over the top of that. So for the length of the video, not everybody wants to sit and watch me color, so I will speed that part up. And if I do the leg, I won't show all 4 limbs because they're pretty much the same. So I'll just show how I color in shade 1, and then what I'm going to do with the leaves, how I do the face and the hair. But I'll speed it up so that it won't take so long in the video. I am going to go back in and add some more detail to it. I'm going to use a Tombow Mono drawing pen to color in the pupils of her eyes. And I'm going to give her a darker upper eyeliner look and some more lashes. You can always go in and make these kind of little detail changes, and it's not anything against the artist, it's just adding your own touch and flair to it. So let's see if that'll focus in. See, I just added a little bit more to that, and then I'll go back in with a white Posca pen and put highlights in her eyes. But what I want to do next is to take an Archival brush pen and a water brush. So what I'm going to do is since she's a fairy, instead of her just having regular light skin tones, I'm going to add some green cast to it, which I can also do with colored pencil. But I love this green Arteza brush pen, and it's called Acid Green. So what I like to do is to draw some of that, put this ink right down onto my work table, and then take my water brush and pick some up, because that'll water it down and tone it down, and then come back over here and lightly brush that green cast in. So see how I'm making like the tips of her ears a little bit green. I'm going to add just a little bit, hint of green to her face. Just a hint. I don't want her all green, but a little green cast I think would just be nice, because she's a fairy after all. So maybe down her shoulders a little bit. And I'm not even picking up more color, I'm just letting whatever's on my water brush and just come out onto the drawing. So see, now she's got a green cast to her. I love that. Any water soluble, I can never say that word, water soluble pen you can do that with. So the Tombow brush markers, same thing. If you wanted to have a yellow tone, when you color yellow directly on your paper, of course it's going to be super vibrant. And your paper is going to absorb it really fast. So to try and blend that down, unless this was a watercolor paper, if you try to blend that down, it's going to be really hard. You're going to see your lines, and it's really, really bright. So if you want a lighter tone of it, and you use it on your workspace, then you can get like a wash. So it's just a different way of using your art supply. When I'm coloring here, I like a lot of depth. So what I like to do first is to color the base color with the lightest tone I'm going to use. In fact, I'm going to go one step lighter here. Color with the lightest tone first, and then add your darker shades on the top of it. So I'm not being precise. I'm not even worrying about staying in these lines, because I'm going to trim this out. It's just getting down a base color. And then I'm going to come back in and add to that. So if I take something darker, I'm going to go into this spot and use that nice Arteza brush pens, have this really great little tip. I can make my little darker hair strokes and refine that. Like where this flip is, you can do some hair strokes there. So it's coloring it, and it's making it look more like hair. Like that. Before I continue on working on my leaves and coloring, I'm going to cut out these two pieces. I'm not coloring this part. You could, but this piece covers this piece, so there's really no point to me in coloring and shading that when you're not going to see it. So I'm going to cut this out and this, and you take your X-Acto knife and you cut along this line inside. You're supposed to do it before you color, because then you're going to slip the hair over the head. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So here's what it looks like. Here's what it looks like cut out, and I always take a pen and go around the edges. I've shown that in all my other videos, so I just take a brush pen and go around those edges so the white doesn't show. It just makes it look a lot more finished. And I think on her, I think I'm going to go around her with a kind of a greenish cast or yellow instead of black. I think black would be a little too much on those edges, so I'll just change them up and make them yellow. Okay, and then when you cut this piece, you cut this section right here with your X-Acto, and then you're going to slip the hair, slip the head into the hair like that. And then I just flipped it over and put a piece of Scotch tape on the back just to hold that in place. So I was coloring the leaves and I liked them, but I had a fun idea. So what I did was to just crop that image and put a piece of watercolor paper into my printer and print just those leaves. And I'm going to watercolor paint them to make them look like fall leaves. So I got out my watercolor paints, and first thing I'm going to do is wet my paper, wet across my paints. And then drop some color in there. Wet on wet watercoloring is fun. And I think it'll make these leaves look really, really nifty. And if it's not wet enough, just spritz it again. Watercoloring is very easy and forgiving. I love that look when you drop watercolor paints and it spreads out. I just thought these leaves would look fun and different to be watercolored instead of just colored in. Fun to let the colors bleed into each other. And I'm going to take some Ken Oliver Burnt Orange. This is watercolor powders, and you have to use them very sparingly. You kind of just sprinkle them on while your page is wet. And let the colors expand. Oh, that's going to look really cool. And then you can mist it again. Let that spread out. That's going to look really neat. like granulated watercolors, and it's really, really pigmented. When you drop it on, it just goes crazy and spreads out. Look how neat that looks. And then I'm going to let that dry. That's going to be gorgeous. Now what I'm going to do is on this space down here where the watercolor has come down from the water being spritzed on it, I'm going to take some rubber stamps of some oak leaves, some fall leaves, little ones, bigger ones, all different sizes, all different brands. They're ones I've had for 20 years. And some Ranger Archival ink in sepia. And I'm just going to stamp some of these leaves right over that pretty orange color that I can use to decorate my girl. And they'll already be that wonderful orange fall leaf color. So I just thought that would be a fun little addition. Why waste that watercolor paper that's already been beautifully colored? Okay, I'm going to let those dry a second and then come back and cut them out. So I cut out those leaves and look at how pretty they turned out. Awesome. I love them. They really look like fall leaves. So I'm glad I did that with watercolor paper, just something fun to do. And then here are my little stamped ones that were on the watercolor paper, and I cut them out, added a little more color to them as well. And then I did a little stamp of a couple of cute little acorns. So those are going to be, these are going to be decorative, and this is going to be her skirt instead of using these. So for the sake of the length of the video, I'm going to go ahead and finish coloring, and I'm going to do it off camera because it's pretty simplistic. The limbs, the upper arms, and these are going to be just in a flesh tone, and then I'm going to do some either browns or greens in the crisscrosses, color in the leaves, and then do her little outfit in oranges, yellows, and browns. Maybe a little bit of green, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like when they're done. I colored all my pieces, and now I'm going to fussy cut them out. Now I'm going to start assembling the pieces, and I know that these two go, these dots, and these have 2 dots each, so you line them all up, and that's going to make her skirt. Her legs have to go behind, and they go in the same hole as well. So I'm going to put the bottom half of the legs together first with poking a hole where the dots are, and then putting a brad. I've got my holes poked through the bottom of the body, the 2 holes on each leaf piece, and the holes in the top of the legs. So you're going to want to go, you're going to want to layer this. Let's see, which side do I want over it? I think I like that one. Okay, so you're going to put your brad through the leaf holes first, and then the leg, and then the body. Like that. And then the same on the other side. You're going to go through these holes first. And then this one. And then that one. Oops, I need the leg in there. And then the body last. And that's the bottom half. For this body piece, I'm going to take my rounded pen and I'm going to just round this paper like this, going in behind and just bending it over the pen. Just kind of giving that paper some shape. Like that. So next I'm going to put together the upper body and the wings. And the wings go like this, one over the top of each other. So you're going to poke a hole in those where the hole is indicated on the pattern. And poke a hole in the top of the dress at the shoulder. And the shoulder. And the upper arm. And in fact, I'm going to put the arms together first because I think it'll be easier for assembly. So just like I did with the legs, I poked the holes in the bottom part of the upper arm and in the top part of the forearm and put those together with a brad. And now I can assemble the top part. So the brad is going to go through the arm first. Actually, nope, it's going to go through the dress first, and then the arm, and then the shoulder, and then the wing, upper part, and then the wing lower part, and that's your stack like that. And then close the brad, and now you've got the arm and the wing. I'm going to do that on the other side. So here she is all put together, and now I'm going to take my little pieces that I created, like the little acorns. I think I'm going to put the acorns in her hand. I'm going to put maybe a leaf up here in her hair like that. I love that. That makes it really fall looking. And maybe this big leaf in her other hand. I'll figure that out, but I'm going to go ahead and start working on the journal page to put her on. And I think what I'm going to do is put some glue right in the middle of her body, underneath here, just to tack down that dress. So far she's looking really cute. It's a pretty fun kit to work with. So I'm going to give Autumn a place in my large Ranger Delusions journal. Look at how cute she looks. I added some stamped fall leaves to her body and head. I added some little white dots to her eyes. I popped up the little acorns. I put a couple more leaves in her outfit, one behind and one in front. She's holding a leaf. She's got little leaves on her shoes. So that's what I added to it, and then these are bent over for a little dimension, and it just looks super cute. Love it. So it's going to go right here in my journal. So for now I'm going to put her aside, and I have this magazine image that I absolutely love. Actually, it came out of an old book that was at the library destined to go into landfill. And I love this image out of the book. It was a book about nature. So what I want to do is create a background based off of that photo. So I'm going to tear the photo roughly around the edges so that it's not perfect. And that way when I add it to my page and put some paint down, it'll kind of just blend in. So I'm just tearing towards me and making a nice rough edge. So since I'm going to be painting over this and up onto it, I think I'm going to use matte gel medium to apply it. So what I like to do is put a thin layer of matte medium on the back side of the image, making sure you get it everywhere, and it needs to be a nice even layer. You don't want it thick in some spots. This is going to help keep it from wrinkling. And then I'm going to apply some to my page. And then I'm going to put my image in place. Go over the edges just to make sure that it sticks really well, and it should dry nice and smooth without any wrinkles. So now I'm going to just let that dry. So to just kind of duplicate that image, what I want to do is take some paint. I've got white and a little bit of a very light blue color, and see how that's like really pale. It's almost a mint color. So I'm just kind of recreating it, and I'm going to just use a baby wipe to loosely cover up this background, and up here a little bit. And I'm going to go right down into that picture. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just an art journal and you're just playing. It's not a portrait or anything that you're going to be selling. So see how that color almost matches exactly that color in the background. So to just kind of duplicate that image, what I want to do is take some paint. I've got white and a little bit of a very light blue color, and see how that's like really pale. It's almost a mint color. So I'm just kind of recreating it, and I'm going to just use a baby wipe to loosely cover up this background, and up here a little bit. And I'm going to go right down into that picture. And it doesn't have to be perfect. This is just an art journal and you're just playing. It's not a portrait or anything that you're going to be selling. So see how that color almost matches exactly that color in the background. And now I'm going to take a paintbrush with a round brush like this, just a round paintbrush, and I'm kind of just I'm using a gray, kind of even mixed in with my blue. Doesn't have to be too specific, but I'm going to just slightly paint some of those trees that are in the background. And you just see how it is. You know, you kind of just look at the picture and follow along. And there are light gray ones in the background, and then the darker ones are closer and in the foreground, and they're going to overlap each other. So you just kind of want to play around with it. And just create some trees, like Bob Ross would say, some happy little trees in the background. I remember watching him when I was a kid with my mother, and I used to love how he would put a tree in the background and say, a happy little tree lives back here. So that's what you're going to do, is just going to put in some happy little trees and keep adding some color to it, so that color to your paint. You know, if you're using a brown or a gray, just keep getting a little bit darker. And I'm going a little more brown. This is more black, but it doesn't matter. It's all right. I'm just playing around. And if the color you've got is too brown, then add some black to it. But I'm not worried. The black will make it a little more gray. And my girl being on the page is going to cover up some of this, so I don't need too terribly many trees. I do want trees behind her, but she's going to cover them up for the most part. So I like this kind of a tree, this big fat tree, and I'm going to put one right here. I'm just pushing down and making it a little fatter. I'm letting it be kind of dry brush because that almost looks like bark when you do that. So dry brush meaning you don't wet your brush, it's dry bristles with just paint on it. I like it, that looks really cute. So what I want to do over here is to continue this tree up to the top. And just brush a little bit of that color down into it so that it kind of blends. See how I'm making the painting now extend up. I mean the magazine image, the book image, those trees, I'm just kind of making them go all the way to the top of the page. That's why art journaling is so fun. You can just play around and create something I bet that you never even thought you could do. And you don't have to get hung up on how perfect it looks. This one's a little grayer, so I dulled it down a little bit. My sweet doggy is begging to go out. So there you go. See how that just made that magazine image really become part of the page? I like that. So I'm going to stop there and go let my doggy out. Down here at the bottom, I'm using just a regular sponge and some black paint. It's not a jet black, it's more of a gray black. And I'm going to just sponge this paint right up to the edge of the magazine image. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Next, I'm going to take some green paint and a little crunched up piece of plastic bag. I'm going to just put the paint on my palette, pick some up with my scrunched up bag, and then I'm going to just come up here to where this green is and just feather that out a little bit to kind of duplicate it. Doesn't have to be perfect, it's just plain. But a scrunchied paper bag or plastic bag will work really nicely for adding in what looks like those leaves. And I'm going right up over that magazine edge. And I'm not going to carry it all the way to the bottom, because I think it gives it a little more depth to have that fern looking stuff sort of stop as it comes out of the forest. Just my opinion. And we're just playing. Okay, and I'm going to put a little over here too. Same thing. It's creating a nice forest for my autumn fairy to live in. Perfect, I love it. Let me hold that up close so you can see. That looks great. Look at. Looks like you can't even tell really where that magazine image ended. So now I'm going to let that dry. Next I'm going to use some Caran d'Ache Neocolor 2 crayons, and I'm using a light cobalt blue, a white, and jade green. This jade green color is really close to what's in this background, only lighter. That's why I'm going to use some white. And this blue is in here too. If I look closely, I can see all these colors in that background. And again, I'm not trying to make it exactly. I'm just going to play around with it. And all I'm trying to do and achieve is to make that magazine image disappear and fade a little bit more, and to add some more color over here. So I'm just taking my Neocolors and coloring right on the page, just to put down a little bit of color. And they blend really nicely with a baby wipe because they're water soluble. So all you have to do is lightly touch them with the baby wipe and kind of blend it out. You can blend it out with your finger. And then over here, same thing. I'm going to add some blue. I'm just coloring on the side of the crayon. That's just to make that misty background color. A little bit of the green, and it's kind of bright, so I'm going to be real careful not to use too much. Just a little. And I'm going in here with some white. Okay. Now I'm going to make that blend into the background. I'm just dabbing it. Then it won't look like crayon marks. You won't see those crayon marks at all. And it blends it right in. It looks awesome. And again, you can take your finger. Take your finger and do a little bit of rubbing. It's going to just make that nice misty color like the picture has. And it doesn't need a lot over here because the paper doll is going to go over here. But it needed something. It was too white, so. You can soften the edges of your tree. That looks really pretty. And see, it's just bringing over the colors that are over there over to here. And now when I put my doll on this page, it looks nice and shady and misty, and it really, really blends in well and ties the two pages in together. I love it. Love it. So I'm going to let that dry. I'm going to take a black Posca pen. This is a PC 8K, so it's a chisel tip. Nice fat chisel tip Posca pen. And I'm going to go around these edges and create a black border. And I'm not worried about it being perfect and straight because this is a fantasy looking page. So I'm kind of going down in some places and just making a frame. And down here too, even though there's black paint, it still needs the Posca border. Look at how that framing that in is just making this page look just perfect. It's just tying it all in together, making it flow really nicely. And there's my black border. So now to add her to the page, I don't want to glue down her legs or her arms because I want them to move so that I can come onto this page and position her in different ways. So I'm going to leave those as is. Now the wings move, but I think I'm going to put them into place, and then I'm just going to tack them down up at the top so that it's off of the page and you get a shadow, but they're not going to be movable at that point. And I could leave them movable, but I don't really need them to be on this page. So I'm going to glue down her little tips of her wings. And on the back side, now if you flip it over, you don't want to impede anything that you want to move. So you don't want any glue on the legs. You don't want any glue where her hips are. So just in the very center, on her head, maybe on the wings, and maybe even down here on her little dress, just as long as, well, no, that would impede that. So really no place other than just in the center and on her head and on the tips of her wings. That's the only place I'm going to attach her to the page, because I want everything else to remain as movable as possible. And then once I put her in place, I'm going to set something heavy down on it so that she'll dry in place. I want her little wings to go up onto the borders. Over that black border. I just think that looks really cool. Makes it look even more interactive. So I'm going to put something heavy on this and let that dry in place, and then I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do next. So next I'm going to add some more elements to this background, just a few. I have these great rubber stamps of pine trees, and they would be perfect here, so I thought, why not use them? I hardly ever use them anymore. So I'm going to use Black Ranger Archival ink and these stamps and just start stamping a few trees, and I'm not going to go crazy and overdo it. Hopefully it'll just be tasteful. It's kind of hard to stamp on a book. Sometimes the stamps don't come out right, but that's okay. See, like that, it didn't come out perfect, but that's okay because I can fill it in with some pen. It'll just give me a guide. So I'm not worried about it. But I just thought a couple little trees randomly stamped might be a cute addition in that background, and I like it. Okay. And I think what I'm going to do is take a book and put it underneath so I have a better, flatter image, and try and stamp it again. Because with a tree, it's not perfect, and I I should be able to fairly line it up. I should have done that in the beginning, have a book underneath so that it would be more stable to stamp on. It's going to be a little tricky to line it back up, but that's all right. I'm going to just stamp it anyway. Oh yeah, see, much better. Much, much better. Okay, that's all that needed. I'm going to take a Tombow Mono drawing pen and just come back in and just touch up those trees that didn't come out quite right. And just pencil, you know, sketch them in with pen just so they look a little bit better. I should have put a book under there. I know better. Do as I say, not as I do. But this looks really cute, so I like it, and it added just a little something to that little forest in the back. Perfect. I like it. Okay, and then next what I did was I went online and found a poem about the autumn fairy. And I printed it, I typed it out onto my word processor, and I put a piece of vellum paper into my printer and printed it onto vellum paper. Vellum paper, you can see through it. So now I'm going to just tear this so I don't have any straight edges. I want them rough and torn. And I took the word out of her kit. There was the word autumn. There was for autumn wings, and it was for the autumn fairy's wings. I cut that out and colored it so it corresponds the color to color with this, and I'm going to put it right there so it'll say the autumn fairy. And then what I like about putting this on here is the trees in the background still show through because it's vellum paper. So I can read my poem, but I can still see my background. I have this rubber stamp that's probably about 20 years old of a fallen leaf, and I stamped it on another little scrap of that cardstock that had the watercolor painting on it, and I'm going to go ahead and trim that out. The poem I found online was written by Lynn Meyer, and I didn't put the whole poem because it's really, really long. I just put a couple of the paragraphs, and it said, "The autumn fairy. Under the moonlight, the creatures all glare at a beautiful fairy with rich autumn hair. She crunches the leaves underfoot where she treads, as she dances and giggles at the stars overhead. Then gusts stir the leaves in the chill of the night, and the beautiful fairy just smiles with delight. She knows the display we'll wake up to at morn, golden leaves at our feet as the autumn's now born." I thought that went so well with this cute autumn fairy. So here's my completed page. I hope you enjoyed watching me create this. It was a lot of fun. And here's what I did with my piece of vellum. I glued it down underneath the word autumn and underneath the leaf so you can't see the glue marks through the vellum. So there is how the vellum looks, and it shows the picture behind it. And here is my autumn fairy from the kit from Lilfuntreasures. So I will put the links in the description box below for this person's Etsy shop if you're interested in buying this kit and creating a fun page of your own in your art journal. Super fun. I really enjoyed it. I know that you probably won't have that paper image or the rubber stamps that I do and things, but you can still create something similar to this, and this just gives you some fun ideas of what to do with that great paper doll. So I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for stopping by at Twisted Art Designs.